Back here on CBS Sports HQ, where we're all still waiting for Aaron Rodgers and the decision to join the Pittsburgh Steelers to happen or not. And while it still appears that Rodgers is going to sign with Pittsburgh, the team apparently has a contingency plan in place. And that's keeping Falcons quarterback Kirk Cousins on their radar. Seems like an expensive contingency plan, but hey, we'll wait and see, because at this point, it does look likely that Rodgers will still be joining the Steelers quarterback room that, of course, features veterans Mason Rudolph, Skylar Thompson, and rookie Will Howard. Now, if no Rodgers, Will Howard should be the guy to develop and turn to, but if Rodgers decides to change course, the Steelers apparently could consider acquiring this veteran, and that's Kirk Cousins. As you take a look at what they've been able to do this past season, Cousins, 36 years old, four-time Pro Bowler, of course, had arguably his best season to date in 2023 before suffering that season-ending injury. Put up some solid numbers his first year in Atlanta, but it was all kind of overshadowed, if you will, by the league-high 16 interceptions that you see there on the other side. And Rodgers with 11, 5-12. record. Cousins and Rodgers, longtime league vets in the league. Elsewhere, there are some players that are still trying to find their stride in the league as they enter their third year. CJ Stroud is one of those guys. Now, sophomore slumps aren't always the end of the world. However, there's still plenty of room for players to bounce back in their junior year. And for much more on who's poised to bounce back or fall back in year three as they enter year three in the NFL, we go ahead and welcome to CBS Sports HQ. It's our own John Breech and Tyler Sullivan. Gentlemen, great to see you. Let's go ahead and start here with CJ Stroud. He put together one of the best rookie seasons any quarterback has had, averaged 8.2 yards per attempt, had the league's lowest interception rate, and led the league in passing yards per game. However, really regressed in year two. Now with year three around the corner here, a new OC, upgraded line, some new weapons. Are you predicting, Tyler, a bounce back or fall back year for Stroud?
Yeah, I think we're going to get a bounce back from C.J. Stroud. And he gave us a pretty high bar, as you referenced there, in that rookie season. So still, you go into that sophomore year, the production wasn't great. But they still won the division. They were still able to win a playoff game. And had it not been for some miscues, they probably could have taken it to the Kansas City Chiefs. In that game, there were 8 sacks, 8 penalties. And I referenced the 8 sacks because I think this is where it was with C.J. Stroud. You see it there. 52 sacks last season compared to the 38 sacks that he took during his rookie year. What I saw last year from C.J. Stroud was a quarterback that kind of was seeing ghosts, particularly with the weaknesses along the offensive line. He really couldn't get into a rhythm on top of all of his wide receivers, whether or not it was Nico Collins, Tank Dell, all of them missing time due to injuries. There was not a lot of consistency in year two for C.J. Stroud, despite having a lot of the same cast and characters. Now, it's completely different. You fire your offensive coordinator and Bobby Slowick. You bring in Nick Caley, which I believe is an upgrade. Whenever you have Bill Belichick and Sean McVay in your background as a head coach or as an offensive coordinator, that's pretty good. And so I think he's going to get better offensive coordinator play, and also they've really helped that offensive line. I didn't like the Remy Tunsil trade. I did not like that at all. But you bring in Cam Robinson, you add Ursery in the second round. There should be some stability there for C.J. Stroud to have protection upright.
Yeah, I'm absolutely on the same page as Tyler here. I do think it will be a bounce back. I know you're giving props to the new offensive coordinator before he's even called a play, Tyler. I'm not sure that Nick Caley could have succeeded with the talent the Texans had last season. You guys mentioned the offensive line, C.J. Stroud taking those 52 sacks, which was the second most of any quarterback in the NFL last season. And so what did they decide to do? Let's just blow things up and start over on the offensive line. It wasn't just trading away Remy Tunsil. They also cut a few players. They go out and spend a draft pick on Arante Ursery. They signed a couple free agents, including Cam Robinson and Trent Brown. So they just totally brought in a whole new offensive line core, and they're just going to start over, which probably makes sense based on how last season went. And Tyler kind of alluded to the injuries at receiver. Well, when you're C.J. Stroud back there, and he mentioned seeing ghosts, part of it is you're trying to process so fast. And last season, Stroud was dealing with the receiver group he wasn't used to working with. You look at going into the season, his top 3 guys were Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs. Well, Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs both suffered season-ending injuries. Nico Collins missed multiple games with a hamstring injury. So if you're a starting quarterback in the NFL, you can sometimes survive when you're missing, I don't know, maybe one receiver. When you're missing your top 3 receivers, you are going to struggle almost no matter what. So this was just kind of the perfect confluence of events for C.J. Stroud to regress. I think we are going to see a big bounce-back year for him in 2025.
All right, some high expectations for C.J. Stroud and company there. Elsewhere, a guy who kind of had a similar situation as Stroud the past few years, a great rookie year, but took a step back in year 2, was Packers receiver Jayden Reed. This one is kind of hard, I think, to predict because of Christian Watson and now with Matthew Golden, Savion Williams present. I'm curious, John, how and how much Reed will actually be used to actually have a bounce-back year here.
Well, I am going fallback here, Jordan. Forget the bounce back. I'm just kind of reading the tea leaves. You go back to February, you had Josh Jacobs essentially saying, we don't have a #1 wide receiver on this team, even though he spent the entire season playing with Jayden Reed. So clearly, he didn't think he was the guy who could fill that role. And then you look at what the Green Bay Packers did in the NFL draft. When you select a wide receiver in the first round for the first time in 22 years, nothing screams, I don't think we have a #1 wide receiver more than doing that. So it really feels like the front office thinks, hey, we need to get better receivers in here. We need to get more talented at the position. And as you said, there was also Savion Williams. So it wasn't just taking a receiver in the first round. They took one in the 3rd round. So it really feels like the Packers want to develop receivers. And I don't know that Jayden Reed is going to hit the numbers he hit last season. It was only 55 catches for 157 yards, but that production was down from what he did during his rookie year in 2023. So I know that he thinks he's going to be a #1 receiver, but the way this offense is built right now, I won't be surprised if he kind of turns into an afterthought as the season goes on. So I'm going to say fallback for Jayden Reed.
Yeah, I'll co-sign that, Breech. I think fall back as well for everything that you just mentioned. Let's let the teams tell us how they feel. Again, first-round draft pick they spend on a wide receiver. They go into day 2, double down at the position, bring in another pass catcher in the 3rd round. To me, that screams they don't like their wide receiver room. And when it's specifically with Jayden Reed, he's just been too inconsistent. Yes, you can look at the numbers and say, okay, well, he led the team in receiving yards last season, but you go game by game, he'll explode for 120 yards, but then have 30 yards the next game. There's not a lot of consistency there. And you look at the tail end of last season, his final 8 games, 19 receptions, 237 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That's not #1 wide receiver numbers in my estimation. So I think Jayden Reed takes a step back. It's a crowded wide receiver room. I think those rookies really ascend.
Yeah, glad you brought up the inconsistency. Struggled a lot with drops as well last season. Let's now check in with Sam LaPorta here, who naturally saw his production go down with Jameson Williams playing a larger role in this Detroit offense. Are you expecting, Tyler, more of the same in year 3 for LaPorta?
Yeah, this is kind of the toughest one for me. I think it's a kind of bounce back because I don't think that Sam LaPorta was that bad last season. It's just his opportunities were dramatically cut off. His targets during his rookie season, 120. You look at his targets last season, it was about 83 targets overall. So you really saw his production, or at least his opportunities, slash. But when he was given those opportunities, he was efficient in terms of his yards per catch and all those things that we point to. So I don't think that Sam LaPorta has necessarily, had a struggling last season. Again, just not a lot of opportunities. And so I do think that he bounces back, but what does that actually look like? You have so many mouths to feed in this Detroit offense between Amon-Ra St. Brown, as you referenced, Jameson Williams, the backfield with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. The ball can only go so many places. So I'm curious to see how this goes for Sam LaPorta, because not only is there a lot of mouths to feed, there's a new offensive coordinator now, Ben Johnson, not in Detroit anymore. How does the new offensive play caller translate to the tight ends? These are all the questions we're going to have with Sam LaPorta as he goes into year 3.
All right, from one tight end to another, let's check in here with Bill's Dalton Kincaid here. Had some injuries, of course, John, that set him back in 2024, but I think at this point, heading into year 3, we know what he can be capable of, but do you see him gaining more of a hold on this Bills offense in year 3?
Yeah, I think he had kind of a weird season. It just really felt like Dalton Kincaid and Josh Allen were never really on the same page. We saw Dalton Kincaid catch 44 passes, which was substantially below what he did in 2023. But that was still the second most receptions on the team. He also had the second most targets on the team. But the one issue was that Josh Allen was completing barely over 58% of his passes when he was targeting Dalton Kincaid last season, when he was completing almost 64% when he was targeting everyone else. So that's a little issue. It just seems like a chemistry thing that these two guys really need to get worked out. But when you look at what the Bills did during the offseason, they signed Joshua Palmer, they added Elijah Moore, so they did add a couple of pass catchers. But this is essentially the same offense. This kind of tells me that the offensive coaching staff still feels very strongly that Dalton Kincaid is going to play a huge role in this offense. And based on the amount of targets he got last season, it definitely feels like Josh Allen does still trust him. So I do think Dalton Kincaid will have a huge bounce back year in Buffalo.
All right, that's a great way to end it. We'll see if these sophomore slumps are put behind some of these players as we get closer and closer to the 2025 NFL season. You can watch and see this NFL season on if these juniors will have a bounce back or fall back year 3 in the league. Right here on CBS Sports HQ, we have all the NFL news, all the NFL highlights, of course, when the season begins, and scores. It's all here, and it's all free.